Hello everybody, my name is Mike. I'm the founder and CEO here at Breedera, and today I'm going to show you how to use the heat cycles, pregnancies and matings features inside the Breedera app. So we're going to start with where we are on the screen right now, which is we are in the dashboard section, which is the first tab from the left at the bottom here. And this dashboard page is actually broken into two sections, which is the heats forecast and the pregnancies forecasts. So starting with the heats forecast, you can see that we've got 3 dogs that are already in this section here, which is Bella, Luna, and Abby. They're all at different stages in their cycles. So you've got Bella, who is in heat right now. You've got Luna, who's due in 91 days, and Abby, who is overdue by 4 days. And in the pregnancy section, you can see Bella listed here again. Now, that's because this heat here at the top, which started a few days ago, has resulted in a mating and then a successful pregnancy. And therefore, there is a pregnancy record created there with a countdown to the actual whelp date. But how do we get this far to all this information here on the screen? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you from scratch where this all came from. So we're going to go to the dogs tab. And we're going to pick a dog that hasn't had any heat cycles, matings, or pregnancy records added before, and that's Daisy here. So if we tap Daisy, we can see that you've got her profile here, which has her overview, all of her basic details, and her birth details, and then her contacts. And we can also see her previous history. So we can go into records and we can just scroll down to breeding. We can see heat cycles, matings, and pregnancies there. And just to give you an example, we'll go into heat cycles and there's no previous heats recorded here at the bottom. There is a attempted prediction for the next heat, but because we don't have any previous heats to go off, we don't have an estimate of when this heat is due to start or when any ovulation dates are, etc. So it's a completely blank slate. If I go back and I look at the matings records, it's a similar story there. There's no mating records actually in her system yet. And similarly, there's no pregnancies. So a blank pregnancy page here as well. So obviously, first step is for her to actually come into heat. So let's go into the heat cycles and we're going to add a previous heat cycle to begin with. So let's say that she was in heat 6 months ago. So I just tap this little plus button down in the bottom right, and I can enter a start date of her heat. So for the date, I'm going to say 6 months ago, it was sort of January time. And let's say about the 11th of January. So I can set that start date. And once you've set a start date in the past, obviously, you can then reveal these additional fields. So we can see like when was her attracted date, for example, when would she start being receptive to males? So let's put that a few days later. You can put an ovulation date there if that was available to you, otherwise you can leave it blank, and you can put an end of the attractive date and an end date for the actual heat itself. So let's just put a date in here, say the 31st of January is when that heat ended. You can see there's a space for notes, there's a space to record any matings there, and obviously to link to a pregnancy as well. But for now, we're just going to hit save, and you can see that that previous heat is added there. Now, in order to predict the date of the next heat, the Breedera app needs at least 2 heat cycles added into the system, and this is so that it can use the distance between those dates in order to forecast the future heat date there. So I'm just going to add one that goes 6 months prior to January as an example. So let's do this again. I'm going to hit the plus button. We're going to say 6 months prior to January. So that's roughly a year ago. So there's a little shortcut here. You can tap that date. You can go back to 2022. You can go into, say, July. Let's say the 15th of July 22. Same thing again, these fields. I'm going to leave these blank for the moment just for this example, but I'm going to put an end date in. So 15th, let's say that it ended 3rd of August. And then I can hit save. Now, as you can see, what this means now is that we have a prediction of the next heat. So we have the 11th of July 23 is the estimated start date of the next heat. So that's actually a few days ago. And you can see here, there's the two previous heats. Now that estimate will also be shown on the dashboard that I showed you at the beginning of the video as well. We can't predict an ovulation date because we haven't entered any ovulation dates in the past. So again, the app has no data to go on, which means that we can't therefore predict a whelp date because that is based off the ovulation date. So let's assume now that we did know an ovulation date here. So I'm going to go back to that first heat and I'm going to add an ovulation date. So obviously it started July 22. So let's say that the ovulation date happened, what's that, 5 days later on the 19th, and hit save. And let's take the January one. And again, started on the 15th. Let's say that that one also happened on the 19th, so 5 days later. And a few of you will already be ahead of me here. What's going to happen? We hit save, and as you can see, it's now going to estimate the ovulation date, which is the 17th of July. And because it can estimate the ovulation date, it can also then estimate the actual whelp date that's going to come from the next heat as well. So that there you have it. There's two previous heats in there, and we can actually then see our forecasted present heat, which is due around now. It's actually slightly overdue. So I can now press this plan next heat button, and you can see it's already pre-filled the start date in there. So let's assume for now that that date was accurate, and it was the 11th. And it's already given us our heat ID. Again, we've got an expected date. We've got our ovulation date, which again, it's now starting to put an expected date in there. So let's put that as the 17th. And we can obviously add the end date when it comes. Now, how does this then transfer into a pregnancy? So obviously, without telling you how the birds and the bees work there, obviously we're going to need to add a mating. So the matings can be added either from this field here inside the heat, or they can also be added independently as an independent record. But for this example, we're going to add a mating inside this heat. So we hit this button here to add the mating. We can then see the date, time, we can select the partner. So let's say the date is well, let's go with today's date, the 14th, and we can select a partner here. Let's take, this is a list of all of our male dogs, but let's take Cooper. Where was Cooper? There. Okay, you can add the tie duration in minutes and seconds. You can add if it's a natural mating or whether it's a vaginal AI or transcervical. You can add that information in there, and you can also add the semen type, obviously if it was an AI, fresh, frozen or chilled as well, and any mating notes that you need can be added there as well. We're just going to hit save. Now you can add unlimited number of matings into the app, and you can add an unlimited number of matings into a heat cycle, but realistically 2 or 3 is what's going to more reflect reality. But I won't do that for this example because they all work the same way. You can add those matings in here and they will show there. You can see we've got an estimated whelp date here of the 18th of September. That's based off the ovulation date, which we've put in as the 17th there. Now, how do this actually then create a pregnancy? So once you've added a mating, you can then create a pregnancy record. So let's wind the clock forward. Let's assume that that mating was successful. We can hit this create pregnancy record. And what that does is it takes the conception information, it takes the mating information, it knows that the sire is Cooper, so it enters that in for us, it enters the actual mating date, and it estimates a due date there of the 18th of September. If you want to view or edit that information, you just hit that button there, edit pregnancy, and you can see that there's the conception date that we had. You can add a confirmation date. Let's say you had a pregnancy test or a scan that you wanted to input. You can put that date there. You can enter any notes. Obviously, when the litter arrives, you can put the actual whelp date. but it also has the due date there, so you can compare the two in the future. And as it gets closer to the actual whelp date, there's a strong chance that you may be recording temperatures in order to more precisely predict that actual whelp date. And that's what the temperature system there is for. So you can then, the same way that you added matings to a heat cycle, you can add temperatures to a pregnancy. So you can just tap that. You can enter a temperature there for Daisy. If you don't work in centigrade, if you're in the USA, for example, you'll want to switch units, and you can put the Fahrenheit example there as well, or you can switch back to centigrade, and you can put the date and time. And that, again, you can record as many of those as you like and add them there. And then if I hit save, and then I'm going to go all the way back to that original dashboard where we started at the beginning, and you'll see how it all fits together. So we're back to our dogs list, and now back to here. And here we are. You can see that Daisy is here. You can see that she is also in heat since the 11th of July, like Bella. And if we scroll down, we can see Bella's pregnancy, and we can also see Daisy's pregnancy there. And the difference between the two is that the ovulation date inside that original heat cycle differed, and that is what has changed the due date from between the two dogs. So you can see Bella's due date is the 13th of September, whereas Daisy's is the 18th, and it's all based around that ovulation date. Now, from this page, you can view the pregnancy back to the page that we were, or you can view Daisy's record as well. So you can just view Daisy there. And then if I go back into her records, like I showed you before, and go to heat cycles, you can see that her heat cycles are still there. You've got that edit heat there, obviously, for when that when you close that off, when she finally gives birth, you can close that heat off. And you can also see her matings. So you'll see that there's the individual record for the mating with Cooper. You can look in there. You can obviously review your notes. You can obviously edit the information if you want. And that's all there for you. And then finally, the pregnancies. You can see that there is an active pregnancy here. If she had a previous pregnancy, this would then land in the previous pregnancies section. So that's a brief introduction to the heat cycles, matings, and pregnancies. Obviously, the next step beyond this is that that pregnancy is then turned into a whelping event, and then that whelping event obviously reveals the litter and the puppies within the litter, and that's a whole another load of records that you can record in the Breedera app, which I look forward to showing you. And we'll do that on the next video. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions about this, just get in touch at support@breedera.com. We'll be more than happy to answer. And until next time, thank you very much for watching.